we had an applicant one here who said the nearest rink is 2 hours away from home. So my mom gets up at 4 a.m., drives me to the rink for 6. She sleeps in the car while I practice. We then head back home. She's at work, a couple hours later. Like, the stories are just mind blowing. And it highlights to us, boy, we got to be able to hit as many of these applicants as we can, because this is more than just a sport to them. This is actually part of their life.
Hello and welcome back to Rinkside Rundown, your go-to podcast for everything women's hockey. I'm your host, Chris Sinclair, and today I'm joined by two very special guests, Danielle Bell and Jehan Jiwa, President and Vice President of the Grindstone Award Foundation, an incredible organization which helps to provide funding for young female hockey players who have the passion to play hockey but face financial challenges. Jehan, Danielle, welcome to the show. How are you both doing?
We're doing great. Thanks for having us, Chris.
Pumped to be here.
So I want to start by maybe just getting a bit of an idea as to who the two of you are and how you got started in this organization. So maybe, Jay, maybe if we could start with you on this one.
Yeah, for sure. Again, thank you for having us. We're so pumped. Like, you do such great work in the women's hockey space, Chris, and we're so pumped to be part of it. As far as myself, I like to say that hockey was my first love as a child. I fell in love with the sport back in '94, which was when the Vancouver Canucks. I'm based in Vancouver, so when the Canucks went all the way to Game 7 of the Cup Finals there, and I was literally the kid who would, I would watch Hockey Night in Canada with my dad every Saturday, ask 100 questions. Why is this happening? Why is that happening? What's happening now? Because I just wanted to learn everything there was to know about the sport. And then as I got more into it, I would mute the TV and I would turn on my tape recorder, do the play-by-play for the games. And like, that's how madly in love with the sport I was. But when it came down to wanting to play, I was told, well, girls don't do that. It's not safe. It's not kosher for girls to play that. So it wasn't until 2002, when our Canadian women's team won their historic gold medal at the Salt Lake Olympics, that I was finally able to fulfill that dream of playing hockey. I also dreamt of working in sport my whole life, and have spent over 10 years in business development, event management, community and social impact for different organizations, the Toronto Raptors, Canada Soccer national teams, Vancouver Whitecaps, Vancouver Canucks. So, kind of built a career on the inside of sports, really learning how these organizations work. 2 years ago, my life took a bit of a dramatic turn. I was involved in quite a serious car accident, which left me with a lot of life-threatening injuries, and kind of had to rebuild my body and my mind from the ground up. Literally had to learn how to do everything all over again. And it has really doubled down my passion for hockey and my passion for Grindstone, because hockey has been that like denominator, that underlying thread in my recovery, who's been there for me since day one. It's been my best friends who happen to be my teammates. The family of Grindstone has been there from day one, and that work has kept me feeling purposeful and kind of drawn me back. The desire to play hockey again is fueling my rehab. So it's just doubled down on my passion for the game and of wanting to give back.
Danielle, I'm going to throw it to you now, and no pressure.
Mine pales in comparison to honestly, Chris, I echo the comments that Jehan mentioned in hers. Thank you for having us on your show. We really do appreciate it. And I mean, my passion for hockey kind of has always been there. I would spend Saturday night hockey night in Canada watching the Toronto Maple Leafs playing, and we won't even go there with the ups and downs, the emotional roller coaster we as Leaf fans feel for our team, our local team. But I was one of 3 girls growing up, and honestly, hockey wasn't really accessible for girls. I don't even think that it was an option for girls in my time to play hockey. It's definitely not as prevalent as it is now. And then it really didn't come to the passion really didn't come out until I had kids. When my husband and I started our family, and he played hockey, and we decided having kids to put them in hockey, and and that passion really grew as you watch them develop and grow and play the sport. And then interestingly enough, I have a son and a daughter that play, and it was really witnessing the difference between boys and girls playing the sport. My daughter played boys hockey early on in the early days, and it was always interesting to be at the rink, and the moms would come up and say, at what age does your daughter have to play girls hockey? And it was just very eye-opening to see that in some of these faces, they were looking at it like, she's taking a spot from my son. And it was just, and so the gender differences and the inequities, we'll say, that were taking place, and so yeah, so it really was the passion that fueled the fire. Having a whole family that played, and I was the only one in the family also that didn't play. So as an adult, I received the equipment, and I went and joined some development leagues and started to develop my skill sets and joined some female leagues. And wow, best decision I've ever made. I will honestly say that, because the community in ladies hockey is phenomenal. But always had a philanthropic mindset, and it truly said I wanted to do more and make more of an impact. And from there, I found Grindstone, and so I joined Grindstone in 2021. And here we are now today, looking to give back even more to more girls.
Danielle, I'm going to throw it back to you as well here. And you've both talked about the Grindstone Award Foundation. Let's maybe talk a little bit about its origin story. Talk about it and how it was formed.
Sure. So back in 2014, two young ladies in Kelowna, BC, they were friends. They were positively impacted from playing the game of hockey themselves, and knew that they really wanted to make sure that other girls had the same type of opportunities that they had. And they came up with the idea that they really wanted to help fund female hockey players that couldn't afford to play. So in 2015, the first registration grant was actually funded. In 2016, Grindstone Award Foundation actually became a Canadian charity, a fully Canadian charity. They continued to grow year after year, and we grew our awareness and perspectives across Canada. And the number of grants grew year after year. And we're pleased to say that now we have awarded just over 280 registration grants to date, which equates to about $140,000 worth.
And Jay, I'm going to throw it to you on this one, because I want to learn a little bit more about the mission. How do you think the mission has evolved?
I think the number one thing is demand, right? The demand has grown so significantly since the pandemic. And particularly, I would say, since the inception of the PWHL, which I'm sure, we're obviously going to touch on a bunch of times during our chat here, but all of a sudden we have these girls who can see themselves on TV, and there's a path for them now to follow, right? So maybe in the past, prior to the PW, girls were dropping out, kind of saying, there isn't really a future for me in this sport, or, I could have a better future pursuing another sport. All of a sudden now there is a pipeline, right? And so all of us for Grindstone, there's such a demand now. Our own team also has done such a terrific job of getting the word out there. They're constantly at events and sending out marketing materials and connecting with minor hockey organizations, saying, hey, we're Grindstone, we're here, this is what we do, how can we help you? So all of a sudden we just have more and more families reaching out to us, families from a diverse, backgrounds that are reaching out to us. And we're realizing that it's about so much more than hockey, right? We read these stories that were being sent, and we realize just how important our role is, and how important it is that we meet that demand with the supply, if you will, of our our abilities to financially support these players. So it just makes our mission that much more important, I would say.
What challenges do you think you've faced in growing the foundation, and how have you worked to overcome them? And Danielle, we can start with you, and then Jay, if you want to chime in as well afterwards, that's cool.
I think early days, the challenge really was about getting our name out there. Being a national charity, it was started in Kelowna, maybe anyone in Kelowna knew about us, but how do you expand that reach? As you start to gain some traction and grow, we were then faced with probably one of our biggest challenges was the pandemic hitting. And with that was, for a lot of people, the challenge of losing out on their sport. Sports stopped, hockey stopped, and for us, when we were making our awareness, trying to known at various tournaments and things like that, we're not getting that visibility. We weren't getting the visibility and the touch points to be at those tournaments anymore. And to stay afloat, because by being at those tournaments would also allow us to receive donations. And we can't do the work that we do without having funding coming in. We definitely had to pivot and work social media and truly reach out to our sponsors and connections to help us grow. And I think the other key with it was knowing the challenge to reach our associations. The local associations were the ones that are closest to the girls that were playing, and knowing that they needed to know who were the ones that maybe weren't going to be able to return because their parents maybe lost jobs through the pandemic, and they were going to maybe need the support. So for us, it was about nurturing those relationships with the associations as well, so that they knew who to point those girls to. We definitely worked tirelessly to nurture those relationships. And I think today we can say we're thrilled with our reach across Canada because of the work that we've done. We now have associations and corporations reaching out to us, wanting us to be involved with growing our name and being out there and visible to their girls. And we see exponential growth year after year on our applicants that are coming in across Canada. And we're always so excited when we see new areas, an applicant that comes from a new area that's like, oh my gosh, it tells us we're reaching that area, right? So that's super exciting. But I think the biggest challenge that we're faced with now is, with this exponential growth year after year, girls applying for grants, how do we raise enough funds that we don't have to turn anybody away? If they're applying and they qualify from a financial need, that they'll receive a grant. So that's probably our biggest challenge that we're facing right now.
Keeping kind of in the same vein as that, but on the applicant side, Jay, what are some of the biggest financial barriers preventing young girls from playing hockey? We've mentioned a few, and maybe they're obvious to many, but I think it's still really important to talk about all of those financial barriers.
Obviously, the cost of registration is the biggest barrier because it's a challenge. It's seeming to go up almost every season. But then there's other barriers beyond that, right? There's the cost of equipment. There's a cost of entering tournaments, even just the commitment from a parent. When we are at these events, we set up a booth or whatever, and I'm looking at the parents who are giving up their weekends to be shuttling kids around. And just a couple weeks ago, I was at a tournament and a parent came up and, we had a table, and she said, can I just use the corner of this table because I got to hammer out some work here. I'm on a deadline. I just need to send these emails. And so you really see the sacrifice that parents are making. Danielle, I'm sure you and your husband can attest to that because you guys are a true hockey family and what you do for your kids. But it's not every family has the ability to do things like that, right? And it almost seems like the higher up you go in levels of hockey, the more financial strain there is. And so what it almost seems like is that players are having to drop out right when they're getting to higher levels, because now families are just tapped out and they're saying, hey, sorry, we can't sustain this. So it's really pulling great players out of the game, and we're left wondering, well, what was that player's ceiling if they didn't have to drop out? So it's really not just one barrier, it's multiple financial barriers that families keep having to kind of overcome just to get their kids on the ice.
And so, Danielle, I am going to put you on the spot a little bit here, and maybe could you maybe talk a little bit, because you have that perspective, what that is like for you to have to, invest time when you have all of these other things, and especially because you're investing this time, but you also have a unique filter in that the impact of an organization like Grindstone. Can you maybe talk just a little bit about that?
I'm fortunate to have a flexible job for the most part, in the sense that I can work remotely, but there was many days that I'd be at the rink. I mean, I'd have to call my day at 2:00 because I'd be having to pick up a child, feed them, and rush them to a rink. And you'd sit there and you'd wonder, how does the everyday parent that has a 9 to 5 job make this work? It's tough. It's without a doubt, it's a struggle. And I truly believe in the phrase, it takes a village, because until you have a child, just one, you have 2, 3, 4 children in the sport, you definitely understand the word, it takes a village, because in all fairness, you have no choice but to depend on other families and putting in, carpool, or, ride shares, or whatever you want. There's no other way around it. I think for those that play the sport, they truly understand why we call our hockey families an extension of our families, because we spend so much time with them. We rely on them to help us get kids to and from a rink, or feed our kids. I remember back in the early days, I would have a car full of 4 kids, and I'd be passing them their dinners and to eat in the car on the way as I'm driving to the rink, just to feed them, to make sure they're fueled so they can actually play the sport. And so it's a huge ask of parents. And I used to laugh and say that I should have kept a logbook of a journal as to hand to my children, to one day say, these are the amount of hours and distance and time we've put into our days to get you to your games, and the level of commitment, right? But you have to value those times in the car, right? The conversations that you'd be part of, or you'd overhear in the car, and the things that it's quality time with your kids. And I mean, I wouldn't change it for the world.
As we kind of continue diving into the Grindstone Foundation, one of the things that I noticed was that on the website, you share the reactions of young girls who are discovering that they'll be playing hockey for another season, especially when they didn't think they were going to. Jay, what does it mean to you when you watch those videos, and how inspiring and motivating is it when you get a chance to see those videos?
I mean, that's the why for all of us, right? That's the best part of our jobs as being part of the Grindstone team. It's one of the things we really pride ourselves on with Grindstone, despite the fact that there's a lot of, we're very blessed in this country. There's a lot of charities out there that are trying to support equality in sport and access to sport. What we love about Grindstone is there is a face to a name, and we really take pride in the relationships we build with our grant recipients and our applicants, so they can contact us. We build up a rapport with them, especially those that apply year over year. We kind of get to know their story a little bit. And when they send us these reaction videos, or when their families reach out to us throughout the season and say, hey, thought we'd send you a couple pics of our girls playing hockey or winning a tournament, it's so inspiring, because it makes us realize, like, we made that possible, and our work and our donors made that possible. This girl wouldn't be doing that without us. And I like to joke with the team when we're going through our grading of our recipients, because they share their story as part of their application. I always say, hey folks, make sure you pack some tissues for this, because we're all just, they really pull at the heartstrings. We're dabbing at the eyes, because they really, they're very vulnerable with us. And they share these stories because they want us to know how much this means, right? And so being able to say, yes, congratulations, you're in, you get to play hockey, that's the very best of what Grindstone does every season.
We've talked about a lot of the different aspects of Grindstone, but let's get a little bit more specific. Danielle.
Yeah.
What programs and what initiatives does Grindstone offer?
Our sole mission is to make sure that we get more girls on the ice playing hockey, if they want to play, but there's a financial barrier. And by doing that, we provide registration grants. So the registration grants help cover the registration fees for them to be able to play. And that is solely our main initiative or program that we run. Having said that, though, we have a bit of what we'll call a secondary initiative that we run. It's not our main focus, but we know, and we've talked here in this conversation, that hockey is an expensive sport, and the registration costs alone are expensive, but then it's not an easy sport. You don't just put on a pair of running shoes and out you go and play. The equipment's expensive. And so we've been very fortunate to have a bit of a partnership with the NHLPA. They, through their Goals and Dreams Fund, have been able for the past few years to provide us with equipment to be able to have a secondary program run where girls that also are in need of equipment can apply and potentially receive that equipment as well. So, so that's a bit of the secondary program that we run, but we know it's expensive, but our primary focus is registration grants and just getting those girls on the ice.
This episode is brought to you by MB Performance Nutrition, fueling the next generation of hockey players. Whether your athlete is just starting out or chasing next level performance, MB Performance Nutrition has free resources to help, like a meal timing guide and protein powder buying checklist. Founded by Melissa Bufunos, a certified holistic nutritionist and former elite hockey player, MB Performance Nutrition also offers one-on-one coaching, team workshops, and more. Learn more at melissabufunos.com. That's MELISSABUFUNOS.com. We spoke about it earlier, but this is the difficult task of selecting those recipients. Jay, what goes into that selection process for the financial aid or for those grants?
We have a team of really dedicated volunteers who do the scoring every year. We've gotten up to over 300 applications, so you can imagine just the time that it takes to go through all of these applications, and they really do their due diligence. Obviously, number one is making sure that financially they qualify and are in a place of financial need. So they submit their notice of assessment, and that's what we use to gauge, is this family actually going through financial challenges, and do they actually qualify for aid based on their financial status? So that's number one. But then we also get the kids, and their parents can help them to kind of write us a little bit of a, who are you? What does hockey mean to you? Why do you want this grant? And that's the part that really gets us. Just, I could go on and on, but just a quick snapshot of the types of stories we get. We get, my parents are getting a divorce, and so now we have a split household, and instead of two incomes supporting our family's finances, we got only my mom or only my dad supporting us. We have one of the parents is terminally ill and they're not able to work anymore. And so there's a whole fallout from something like that. We get, my sibling is facing health challenges, and in the home, it's all about them. But when I'm on the ice, it's about me. We get stories of children facing their own mental health crises and saying, but hockey is where I find my identity, and that's where I'm able to pull my anxiety and my mental health together, put those things aside and just focus on the game. It's where I have my best friends. We talked about the time constraints that parents face in getting their kids to hockey. We had an applicant one here who said, the nearest rink is 2 hours away from home. So my mom gets up at 4 a.m., drives me to the rink for 6. She sleeps in the car while I practice. We then head back home. She's at work, a couple hours later. Like, the stories are just mind-blowing. And it highlights to us, boy, we got to be able to hit as many of these applicants as we can, because this is more than just a sport to them. This is actually part of their life, right? It's part of their identity.
So maybe, Danielle, talk about some of those success stories and some of those stories where, maybe when you're going through the process and having to say no, you also remember that you said yes to these other individuals.
One of success stories that I want to highlight is with respect to Cadence. Cadence is from Vancouver. She found that when she played hockey, it really helped with her mental health. And we're very fortunate we had Cadence out speaking last year with the Canucks at their Women's Empowerment Night. Because for her, she wanted to share her story and tell the work that she was able to, like the work that we do at Grindstone, providing her the chance to play hockey was what was the tipping point for her with her mental health. We have one girl in particular, her mom reached out, and she is on the spectrum, and she's like, it's because she's a goalie, she's on the spectrum, and so she views it as, with hockey, because she's valued, because she's the goalie, she helps her team save goals. She's valued, she feels valued there and has friends, whereas she goes to school every day. And because she's different from her classmates, she doesn't have that same rapport with her her peers as she does with hockey. So it's stories like that that make you want to say yes, like I want to hit that golden buzzer, right? And say you're getting to get to play hockey again this year, right? So it's making the difference in their lives.
Jay, I want to ask you how you measure the foundation's impact on growing girls and women's hockey more broadly.
The most tangible way to measure our progress and our impact is those grant applications and those recipients. How many are we granting to? And I'm proud of our entire team here, because since inception, and Danielle kind of gave us those numbers off the top here, but we've increased our number of recipients year over year, minus obviously the pandemic year for obvious reasons. But even during the pandemic, when the funds had stopped coming in, we were still able to give out a measured amount of grants to keep the program running and to keep supporting people. And then ever since we've kind of put that chapter behind us, we're growing year over year. So that's the way we measure our impact in the most tangible way. Obviously, we want to increase our partnerships and our sponsorships. We want to continue to grow how much we're bringing in, our investment even within our own charity, because sometimes it's a chicken and egg thing where we need to invest in ourselves in order to continue to invest back in the hockey community. But something that we're kind of unapologetically publicizing now is, yeah, we're doing phenomenally well and we're doing everything we can, but we're still not hitting every application and we're still not able to say yes. We're starting to be a bit more vocal about that aspect to let people know, as great as Grindstone is doing, we're still not there yet, and that's the measure we want to obviously improve.
And Danielle, you had mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I wanted to go into a little bit more detail. You had spoken a little bit about how partnerships within the organization, especially you'd mentioned with the NHLPA, have really impacted Grindstone and being able to provide for so many young girls. How did those things come about? How did you create those relationships with, for example, the NHLPA, with TELUS, Vancouver Canucks, as you've mentioned a couple of times? How do those things come together, and what impact have they had?
Truthfully, a lot of the relationships are through warm introductions. We're constantly also reaching out, just trying to reach some key players that maybe want to have that impact and a close tie. I think we're trying every measure possible to get those introductions or companies reaching out to us, but the impact is huge. So we've already talked about the NHLPA, and yes, we're so fortunate to have them on our side and on our team, helping us from the equipment grant side of things, providing free brand new equipment to some of these girls, which is huge. It's a major win. But we also have other major wins and are so proud of our supporters, like the Vancouver Canucks. So the Vancouver Canucks and the Canucks for Kids Fund, they have donated to Grindstone over the past 4 years a cumulative amount of $80,000. So $80,000 to go back to girls in Vancouver, Lower Mainland region, to be able to have the gift of playing hockey it's huge. And they didn't just financially donate. So the Vancouver Canucks have had a women's empowerment night for the past number of years. And they have been so kind to host us and invite us to it. And at times we've been on the Jumbotron and having the opportunity to spread the word as to what Grindstone Award Foundation does, who we help, so that everyone that's in that arena that night gets to learn a little bit more about us and what the work we're doing, in hopes that they either want to make a donation or are thinking and turns that light bulb on to say, oh my gosh, like I work for this company and we have a community involvement, or we have the funds, we want to sponsor them, right? So the platform is huge to be able to spread that reach. So for us, and they've also hosted us in a box where we've been able to meet and network with like-minded individuals and collaborate on initiatives, which so for that, I mean, we are so grateful for the Vancouver Canucks on their ongoing support of Grindstone. And then I think like TELUS, for example, they came to us and with the women's, they originally joined us with the Women's Worlds that was in Brampton a few years back, and made the donation. But again, they had ongoing ads running on the Jumbotron throughout all of the games. So people knew who we were and could learn more. And there was a concourse level booth that they could help raise funds and learn more. So all of these interactions, ways that we're partnering, they're making tremendous impacts in varying ways.
Jay, the support from Team Canada players and the PWHL has been absolutely incredible, obviously, especially with the growth and exposure now with the PWHL. How has their involvement also helped to raise awareness and funds for Grindstone?
Yeah, the amazing thing about the Team Canada, women's national team players is like I've spent a huge part of my professional career working with pro athletes, right? And I always say to them, you have a platform. You really need to understand that you have this incredible platform where people look up to you and they they put stock in the words you're saying. Use it, right? And when I look at the women's national team and what they've done for Grindstone, it's such a informal relationship where we can text them and say, hey, we got a campaign running, do you mind sharing it, or do you mind participating in this campaign with us? And they're like, yeah, of course, anything for Grindstone. They're all willing to help. We don't need to go through kind of the agents, and it's something good we can do. We're happy to do it. A lot of times the women's national team players will reach out to us and say, hey, we actually got this donation, or we're participating in this charity golf tournament, we want to donate the proceeds to Grindstone. So that's incredible to know that Grindstone is front of mind with them, that they recognize the importance of the work we're doing. And then you add in the PWHL. I mean, when it was announced the PWHL is happening, we all at Grindstone had big smiles on our faces. We were sitting a little straighter in our chairs because we were like, what does this mean for us? This is going to have an impact. Our role just got more important because more and more people are going to want to get into the game now, right? So the players have been incredible. We have two ambassadors, Jana Hefford and Emma Woods, who are constantly championing our causes, always connecting us with their networks and trying to help us with, with that generosity. And then even just last summer, so the PWHL partnered with UPS to run these summer camps where various players kind of went back to their home cities and ran summer camps in those areas across Canada and the United States. And they reached out to Grindstone and said, hey, why don't you see if you have recipients in these regions where the camps are being held? And why don't we send them to the camps completely free of charge? So you can imagine if a family is struggling financially, what really becomes out of reach is things like summer camps and spring camps. Like those become perks and nice to haves. And so all of a sudden, these kids who would have been sitting at home and on the sidelines all summer long, we're now reaching out saying, you want to go to a summer camp with the PWHL? And they were just thrilled. I remember a parent saying to us, our kids were super bummed because everybody was going to go back in September and be talking about, I went to this camp and I went to this camp, and they wouldn't have been able to to say that. And now, thanks to this collab with the PW and UPS, we were able to send our grant recipients. The PWHL, we're always in constant contact with them and looking forward to obviously expanding that partnership because they are now the gold standard for our sport. And we as Grindstone are here to support them and to work together, obviously.
And, Danielle, when you have PWHL, like professional athletes who have bought in, what does that mean and how important is that to the mission behind Grindstone?
It's a definite win for us. I mean, it helps us strengthen our passion even more to say, yes, like we're getting there. Like we're making strides. But I mean, in all fairness, their support brings increased visibility. As Jehan mentioned earlier, I mean, they have a platform, they have a voice, right? And when they're sharing the work that we're doing and the impacts that we're making, it really helps spread that reach for us. It also brings the credibility and the influence that they have. But I think it also inspires the next generation. And when young athletes see their idols supporting us and doing good, I mean, this is what the young people of today need. They need to see that it's that whole be kind movement, right? It's supporting others. It's understanding for these girls. We know that hockey is an expensive sport, and dependent on the age, it may not resonate that how lucky and fortunate they are to be playing. But as they start to see the fact that there are girls that do need the help, it really starts to shift the mindset, I would say. It really helps bring that, we are fortunate to play, and how do we pass that baton and make sure that others have the chance to play. And then I think it also just screams to the fundraising and sponsorship growth. The fact that they have a platform, they have collaborations amongst themselves with brands and so forth. And if they can make those introductions to us to increase our sponsorship dollars, why not? We gladly want to entertain those conversations, because we don't want to be turning away girls, and we know we'll get there maybe one day, but until then, we have to have funds coming in the door to be able to continue doing the work that we do.
Yeah, and those partnerships are so key. And Jay, when you look at the partnership, for example, with the National Hockey Players Association, how has that helped to provide equipment to young female hockey players who, maybe that is their barrier to getting in?
The NHLPA so they've been providing us 25 sets of full head-to-toe brand new equipment since the 2020-21 season. So the number of times we'll reach out to a family and say, hey, congratulations, you've been successful in receiving a registration grant. And they'll reach out with, thank you so much. Do you have any lead on equipment? Because we actually also need equipment. And without that, we won't be able to put our daughter into hockey. So that's where we're now able to go, yeah, actually, yes, please apply for this. And we see a lot of the same names applying for both of those grants. So that's a really cool feeling to be able to go, Grindstone helped these folks get their registration covered. And now through the NHLPA, their equipment. So we're literally, it's a full service able to get these girls on the ice. It's a pretty cool service, that we're able to offer. And even just working with these folks at the PA, right? Like there's so much alignment. You can tell these are just great people who love the game as much as we do, and they want to help with their platform. And one of the really unique things about the Grindstone relationship with the PA is, so when they normally will donate equipment, they will generally donate it to a minor hockey organization or to a team. So they're kind of shipping everything to one location, one rink, and then everybody grabs their items. But in Grindstone's case, our applicants and our recipients are spread out across the country. So for the PA, it's actually a way bigger lift, because they are delivering, and it's not even like everybody's in a big city where you can go, okay, we're going to deliver to, Vancouver and Toronto and Edmonton, and then everybody go get your stuff from the local hockey shop. They're delivering to remote communities where we have recipients, and they've taken that on, of taking on that shipping cost and the effort to make sure that nobody gets left out. And so we are so thankful for them. The visibility piece as well. They've done a bunch of articles and the things to get the word out. So again, just truly an organization that cares and wants to grow the game.
Danielle, what has been the biggest takeaway, or some of the biggest takeaways, from being able to connect with these grassroots organizations or events? Because that's very different.
When we start to attend some other of the what we'll call some bigger events that have a bigger platform, such as WickFest or the little Native Hockey League, we could be hitting an area that maybe they didn't know about us. So for us, it really is about more reach, but to hear their stories, to understand their needs, it really solidifies the work that we're doing and ensures that we're on the right path to meeting the needs as well. Right now, anyways, we have our grant applications open on once a year. We hope that one day that will change, but throughout the year, we do receive emails from people requesting funds, like they've hit a life change all of a sudden, where something drastic has happened, and in order to continue the season, for they're in need of funding, so they'll reach out. And for us, we don't just turn them away and say, sorry, we can't help. Like our next time is X date to apply. We actually go that extra mile and say, oh my gosh, like we can't help at this time. However, like you really should reach out to the following. And we have our network of people that do similar things that we do, and they might be able to help. So we're constantly trying to assist them. in the right direction, because we know what it means to have these girls playing the sport and the changes it makes in their lives. So we don't just say, sorry, we can't help. We go that extra mile. And to know that we're also really learning what's changing year after year, and it solidifies really the work that we're doing.
One of the things that I noticed about the organization is that there's a real focus on being committed to equity, diversity, inclusion, reconciliation, and accessibility. We've talked about some of the various tournaments that you've been involved in. When you look at Grindstone specifically, how does Grindstone actively work to ensure that hockey it continues heading in that direction and becoming more and more inclusive?
Like, we recognize that the demographics of Canada have evolved a lot over the last 50 years, or even beyond that. And even now, in the next couple of years and decades, the demographics of Canada are changing, and our whether we're talking about our minor hockey leagues or we're talking about our national teams, they need to reflect who Canada is, right? And that is where our work becomes even more important in reaching those different communities, um, because they face maybe even more barriers than the average Canadian. It might be a cultural barrier, it might be a language barrier, again, it might be financial, it might be just introducing them to the game of hockey for their girls, and letting them know that it's okay for girls to try this out and to expand into something like that. So we are constantly trying to reach those communities. We're trying to partner with different organizations, because there are great organizations that are doing work in those spaces. And so we're constantly trying to expand our partnerships and say, hey, you all are subject matter experts in this area. Educate us and show us how we can help. Teach us where the need is, show us where the need is, and how we can help.
Danielle, I want to know from you, how does it feel for you to know that you're having such an impact, or that you're helping to have such an impact at a grassroots level and up?
I mean, it's incredible. It really, I don't even think words can describe the feeling, truly. We just, sometimes we think we're still here at this grassroots level, like we're like this little nut still, but we've actually blossomed into this tree. But the work that we're doing is still this nut, because for us, our mission really is about, how do we keep getting more girls playing the sport? How do we get them on the ice? How do we create inclusivity and making sure that anybody that wants to play can play? So the feeling is just, it's this ongoing feeling of excitement, and the wheels are always turning to, how do we make that next impact? How do we continue to grow? So even though, as I said, like, I feel like we've gone from the nut and maybe a little bit more into the tree now, knowing that our reach is expanding, all the work that we're doing is still grassroots in a way, because we have to stick to our mission. Our mission is about getting more girls, inclusivity. How do we expand that reach?
How, for listeners, for viewers who want to support this incredible foundation and the work that you're doing, what are the best ways to contribute? And maybe it's through donations, volunteering. What other means is the best way to support what you're doing and continue to do in your future?
If the message that you're hearing and the work that we're doing is resonating, and you want to be able to give back, there are, we'll call it, 3 different hats or pillars that you could go or fall within. The easiest one requires time and effort, and that's to volunteer. You could have a specialized area of focus. So for example, if you're an accountant or a lawyer, or there's something very specialized that we can find for you to do within. But that being said, we need admin work. We need people doing research. We need people helping with events. So it's there really is something for everybody, and it just requires a reach out, and we schedule a call to connect and figure out maybe where there's a need, and if it fits what they're looking for, and the time restraints that they have, that they can meet as well, then it's a great way to give back and have that feel good that feel good feeling that you're making a difference in the world of girls and hockey. So that's bucket number one. Bucket number two is you can donate. So whether you want to make a one-time donation, a monthly donation, if you want to write or have a fundraiser, that's another great way to raise some funds. So so a donation is always appreciated. And then the other one, that's the bigger ask, and we can't do what we do without funds coming in. So sponsorship. So if you do have a company or you work for a big company and know that there are funds available, maybe it's something that aligns with your company. I think it's just about reaching out and having that conversation to chat and see where those sponsorship dollars can work.
You know, while that wraps this episode of Rinkside Rundown, I do want to say a huge thank you to the both of you for taking the time to come on the show, to share your stories, your very own origin stories, but also to talk about this incredible foundation and the work that you're doing. I cannot thank you enough for joining me today. So I will say it again. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Yeah, it's been a pleasure to be able to speak the work that we're doing, and hope that even if it just hits one extra listener that enters an application to apply, it makes a difference. So thank you.
Absolutely. And it's my pleasure. And if you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your fellow hockey fans. It really does help us grow and bring more incredible stories from around the world of women's hockey. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time on Rinkside Rundown. Cheers.